Hi, so my name is John, and I have a Pew Bible that I put a cover over and decorated. Um, I college flunk out that majored in philosophy, and it wasn't until years after flunking out of college that I came to know the Lord Jesus Christ, and that I-O in the middle of love there or live, that is the Greek letter phi, just the first letter in the word philosophy, which is love of wisdom, and also the first letter in the Greek word phileo, which is brotherly love, like the Church of Philadelphia or American City, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. And yeah, so I decorated my Bible kind of as a reminder to live, love by the word of God. And yeah, over the years of after flunking out of majoring in philosophy, where I was guided to a reading list by my first philosophy professor in community college, who actually was a Christian, but didn't like preach that in his community college class, but he gave me a reading list and to help me prepare for majoring in philosophy when I went on to 4-year school. Most of that reading list was atheistic philosophy, which is not philosophy. It's not the love of wisdom. If you deny the wisdom of God, you're not a philosopher. And prior to Christ, BC times, there were many philosophers that strove to find wisdom and love wisdom, and then afterwards, from what I've studied, most so-called philosophers have been denying wisdom, trying to make it up on their own. And thanks to Dyer, all those studies over the years, I watched a video where Dyer was talking with Alex Jones about a book that came out just a few years before I was born that kind of encapsulates the so-called philosophy that ignores the wisdom of love. And that book was called Changing Images of Man. And so I saw the video, read the book that he was talking about, and I've taken a lot of time. It's been since November, and I've had other things going on, but I've taken a lot of time to read and research that book. And um, unfortunately, I didn't have the money at the time to order a hard copy of it, but there was a PDF of it available online. And so I'm planning to make a series of videos about that book. And I have a notebook, and I'm just basically going to read through that, the notes I've taken on it, and my views on what's going on in the world, and why there's a bunch of people in power and wealth and control in this world that don't want people to recognize themselves and each other as created in the image of God. They want to remake the images of man, which, well, as Dyer was talking, is collectivism, and it's kind of insanity in the guise of reason. And so here goes. I'm gonna just start talking about it, and then I'll probably make a series of videos because there's 8 chapters and appendices in this book, and they're pretty detailed and pretty enlightening as to why the world has become the way it is. Like in my lifetime, a lot's changed. There's my parents, grandparents, a lot's changed in their lifetime, and the changes keep happening faster and faster, and it's hard to keep up with. And so, yeah, hopefully this series of videos that I plan to make can help some people to understand some things and and resist the temptations to fall in line with a worldly system that is pretty much, they claim to be humanists, which is, like, I guess probably the most dominant religion on earth is the so-called anti-religious, non-religious humanists, which a lot of people nowadays call humanism a secular non-religion, even though many of the people that started the Humanist Manifesto were calling it a new religion. And because everybody's religious, there's really basically two religions on earth, and there's belief in the truth and following after that and living by that, the true religion, and then there's not believing the truth, and though it's only one other falsehood, it's divvied up into thousands, if not millions, of different sects and ideologies. So, and that's what this changing images of man book was about, trying to merge truth with lies. And so here I go. I'm gonna flip the screen around and start reading some stuff. All right. So changing images of man. It was published in 1982 by Pergamon Press, which was an Oxford-based United Kingdom publishing house. It was founded by Paul Rosbaud and Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell. It's interesting to me that it's called Pergamon Press, because if you read the book of Revelation, the Revelation of Jesus Christ written by John, there is a church written to in Pergamon, which was what John said, that Jesus said to these people at this church at that time is where Satan dwelleth. In Revelation 2:12 through 17. Yeah. So Robert Maxwell owned the publishing company of this Changing Images of Man book. It was founded in 1948. He was ejected by the board in 1969, but later reacquired it in 1974, and he sold Pergamon Press to Elsevier in 1991, which retained the Pergamon name in U.S. books, and it became part of the Macmillan Incorporation, which is a major contractor for U.S. Department of Education for textbooks. So it was kind of an important work. I'm not sure how many colleges utilized this book, but the theories, thoughts, and ideologies of it have definitely been big into the public education system. So, and I will go over sometime in this video or series of videos how effective Alice Bailey and the United Nations agendas have been on educating people. So chapter 1 of Changing Images of Man was Images of Man in a Changing Society. They say, if human nature is seen as complete and fixed, then our task is to adapt ourselves and our institutions to enhance that development. What development? If it's fixed, how can enhancement be possible? If human nature is broken, as God says it is, why the pride to think humans can fix it when God said He will? They have as a definition of image of man, the set of assumptions held about the human being's origin, nature, abilities, and characteristics, relationships with others, and place in the universe. Whether we are basically good or evil, whether we are having free will or determinism, perceptions and behavior are influenced by images. And then they have a table. Table 2 in this book, selected successes and associated problems of the technological industrial era. So, according to their table, the successes of the technological industrial era were reducing infant and adult mortality rates, highly developed science and tech. The problems with that were regional overpopulation, problems of the aged, nuclear weapons, bioweapons, specialization, threats to privacy and freedom, surveillance, bioengineering, and unemployment. So they assume that the world's overpopulated. That's one major thing that globalists, elitists have been talking about for quite a long time. Another success of the industrial era, machine replacement of manual and routine labor, advances in communication and transportation. Successes? The problems that they see with that was pollution, air, land, noise, water, overconsumption, depletion of resources, disruption of human biological rhythms, information overload, vulnerability of a complex society to break down. Okay. Well, and at the time they wrote this in 1982, machine replacement of manual and routine labor wasn't what it's planned by people that think like them to be with AI and automation. Because replacing manual and routine labor, like having tools for humans to use, was a success, I believe. Replacing humans with tools and automation so that, like, not to make work easier, but to just replace humans because they think the world's overpopulated, that's a bad idea. They say as a success of the industrial technological era was satisfaction of basic needs. But the problem with that was depletion of resources and overconsumption. Well, overconsumption means it's not just satisfying basic needs, it's overconsuming, taking more than you need, using more than you need, because you're feeling the need to build wealth, hold on to things, accrue things, hoard things to yourself, when really what they should have seen as a solution to that problem would be the preaching of the gospel to people to understand they're created in the image of God and to love their neighbor as their self, to share what you voluntarily and lovingly share what you have extra of to people in need, rather than their collectivism idea, which is having government or institutions force people to give everything they need to the collective so that the experts can control the distribution. Another success that they see in the technological industrial era was efficient production systems, affluence, and material growth. Efficient production systems did help people. They want them more efficient to help less people because they think the world's overpopulated. Problems that they see in this era: revolutions, rising expectations, rebellion against non-meaningful work. Now, what they define as meaningful work will further delve into. Um, Seems to me they think their work of coming up with ideas and fictions and writing books and a lot of things they find meaningful. A lot of people in our consumer based, mostly consumer based population within the United States, uh, if you're not being able to be creative and do what you want to do the most and and feel fulfilled and self confidence and self esteem, then the work you're doing is not meaningful. Instead of just redirecting our minds to see, like, oh, yeah, producing goods like actual needs for people's physical needs is good. A success that they see is an expanded power of human choice. And they say that came about with the technology and industrial era. And the problem they see with that success is unanticipated consequence of technological applications, management breakdowns as regards to control of these. Okay. So it's a good thing that people's power to choose has expanded, but that became a problem because management can no longer possibly control all of these for individuals. Another success, expanded wealth of developed nations, pockets of influence. And the problem they saw in that is an increasing gap between have and have not nations, frustration of the revolutions of rising expectations, and pockets of poverty. Well, the expansion of wealth and many people having a lot more wealth due to efficient processing and building and stuff. I don't see how that expansion of wealth, some people having a lot more wealth because of the Industrial Revolution and, I don't know, constitutional laws and protections, or just ingenuity of human beings. I'm not sure that rose poverty. I don't think it did. I mean, there are people in poverty still, but there were before the Industrial Revolution, and there are less now. Or maybe more because the population has increased. Michael Marion, the guy they quote, strongly disagrees with the last four on the table, saying perceived affluence is going to scarcity. He thinks the expanded power of human choice is problematic. Okay. The table lists revolutions of rising expectations and the frustration of those revolutions both as a problem. How can the frustration of a problem be a problem? They cite Joseph Campbell a lot in this book. Joseph Campbell wrote a book on mythology that a lot of collectivists have viewed as a way to create the coexist thing and how everything is truth. It's not. Not everything is truth. That's, kids understand that, and they take true or false tests in schools that often teach this kind of stuff at the same time. They talk about 5 needs to be fulfilled by images, the images of man that they're trying to change or create. And those 5 are mystical, cosmological, sociological, pedagogical or psychological, and editorial. In mystical, they classify that as a need to be fulfilled, a sense of mystery inspired by experience of universe and place in it. Cosmological, image of universe's structure by knowledge and experience. Sociological, validate, support, and enforce social order. Pedagogical or psychological, guiding individual through stages of life through teaching and education. And editorial, deciding what is important and not, what is to be attended to or ignored. And I guess from we'll go on more, but they don't think individual people can do those things for themselves, and they want to change the image of man because they're I don't know. It seems like it to me in my study of history. It's always been that the believers in the true God and the actual followers of Jesus Christ have never really been the majority and had actual control over many societies. Kind of outsiders. They also had two additional functions to creating images of man. That's political and magical. Political is where myth or institution is deliberately employed to represent the claim of privilege and authority, and magical, wherever prayers, rituals, or other extraordinary techniques are used for special benefits. The mystical function of inspiring in the individual a sense of the profound of the universe has been neglected almost entirely as the synagogues, churches, the traditional servants of this role have become increasingly concerned with social justice. I agree with them there. I do agree with them there that churches have become too concerned with social justice and not concerned enough with what God considers justice, and not concerned enough with what God has offered us in His mercy and truth. The people that read this book think the future of humanity requires one, limits of growth that undermines the welfare of the ecology. So they want depopulation. It seems their desire is to actually spread poverty, and they've used climate change fear to distribute these ideas and to push for that, to get basically to through mystical function of utilizing their science as the religion or humanism as the religion to depopulate the earth, to have human beings not consider themselves is important and somehow a threat to the planet of Earth, which God created for us to live on. So, their second one that they think the future of humanity requires is emphasizing the survival not of the physically fittest, but of the wisest. Well, they don't disagree with Plato. They don't. In Plato's Republic, they don't disagree with that. The wisest should rule, but the survival of the wisest. I think they disagree. I don't know that Plato, I'm not a big fan of Plato either, but survival of the wisest? Like, if you're not as wise as us, if you're not an expert, well, you don't need to emphasize the survival of the fittest. Like, they just redefined fittest in their Darwinian view. You know, not the physically fittest, not the emotionally fittest. I mean, I don't know. But the third one that they think humanity requires is depend more on behavior of whole species than of individuals, on cooperation rather than competition. Okay, how are they going to achieve that? Well, they're going to go on in the book and talk about that. They define wisest falsely as the educated specialists, even though specialization is listed by them as a problem in their table. They think collective thought is good, but they know they mean good for the elitists. They have commoners all think collectively how unimportant they are and how they'd be bad to want to choose to think freely and not go along with their plan for utopia, which actually means nowhere because they don't have an end to their plan. It's constant change They believe change is the only constant. They're going to constantly try to change things. And any traditional thing, anything that's worked for the benefit of mankind throughout all of human history, needs to be changed. They say that a lot throughout this whole book. And so I'm going to just continue on to chapter 2. And I'll just give the title of that, and then I'll probably post this in another video. We'll go chapter by chapter. It is frustrating to read this. I spent months reading it, and I wrote a lot of notes on what they said, and I'm not very good at shooting videos. I haven't had time to get very good at that. I've been basically working full-time for years and doing things that are, I guess, somewhat meaningful work, like moving shipping boxes so that people can have things in this country, cooking food in restaurants. I know that's, pretty meaningful. People have to eat. So, but yeah, I flunked out of my philosophy majorhood and been on my off time reading a lot. And so I'm hoping that I'll get better at sharing what I've learned with people. This video is probably not the greatest, but hopefully the next one will be a little better, and maybe people will watch it. Thank you.